welcome. Thanks for joining me today. It's a whole new year and I have a cute little project for you. It's called Lovebirds, and you can just see here how adorable it turned out. I have my little lovebirds and my little heart, my X's and O's, and a cute little border around it. And I'm going to talk to you about how to piece it and how to make it. The pattern is available for you to download. And I hope you enjoy it because a lot of thought and I put my heart into this, so I hope you will too. Let's kind of talk about a little bit about the fabrics that I chose. I am a red person. I love reds. I've always liked reds, and you can tell by my quilts I have a lot of red quilts, but I've tried really hard not to make everything red, because I know it's really important to kind of dig deep down inside and change things up. So I have a lot of blues, I like grays, I like a little bit more modern quilts. This is kind of taking me back to a little bit of traditional meets modern for making it. So anyway, as I was picking out my fabrics, I put a lot of different colors together. And the colors that just kept calling to me were the light blues, the dark blues, the reds, and the whites. And I just really think it came together really well with the colors that I chose. Now, as you were thinking about it, I'm a red person. My husband likes yellow, and I was going to incorporate, because it's Lovebirds, yellow into it, but it just didn't look right. So I've decided his new favorite color is light blue, because he looks really good in it. So anyway, he doesn't know that yet, but I think we're going to say that he likes light blue now, because women can change men's minds a lot. Anyway, let's get back and talk to you about how I decided what I was going to do. There are a lot of revisions on this quilt, and when we are quilting and piecing, I know that there's a lot of editing going on and a lot of revisions that we like to make because we want to make it our own. And with this pattern, I really encourage you to make it a part of you. By choosing colors is one way to make it a part of you, but maybe you don't want to use the X's and the O's, and that's just fine. You can eliminate those and you can just do the center part. Maybe you don't want to make the heart in the center, and maybe you just want the two little lovebirds and put some little writing in here. That would be cute as well, to put a little verse that means a lot to you and your loved one. This would make an adorable pillow as well for somebody who's getting married. There are just so many different ways that you could utilize this pattern. And if you think about it, it will probably become a very good pattern for you to use for those who are getting married, for anniversaries. Wow, the sky's the limit with this one. And I know with Valentines coming up, you could even incorporate your own twist to it. So think about it, and let's jump in and let me talk to you about a little bit more about the fabric. I found this cute fabric at a quilt shop in California, and I wish I could remember the name, but I can't. But it was a wonderful little quilt shop in Eureka, California, and she had God, the best selection of fabrics ever. Some of these are Tilda fabrics, some of them are Moda. So find in your stash what you like and what looks good together. I want to suggest that as you're making the X's and O's, if you decide to use those, a lighter color on the X's works really well. So as you're pulling fabrics, think about dark for the birds, the outer layer of the birds, the dark section for their feathers out here. And then I used a medium tone for the wings. And you'll notice that I used a real light for their little tummies, their underbelly parts, okay? So if you wanted to swap it around, maybe make the male a dark right here and then the light on this side, just pull them out and start picking and choosing. I found that the way that you put the fabrics on really means a lot. And with this little piece right here, notice it looks just like the eye on the little girl bird, and it turned out perfect. So you might want to fussy cut your fabrics, and I have a little eye right here, although I did use a circle design on the fabrics for the boy birds. But you'll notice that I have their little beaks right here, and they're facing each other, kissing. Now, there are obviously a lot of other ways that you could piece this. I tried a lot denser designs to make the heart, but I didn't want the heart to be the focal point. So if it was a busier design on the heart, it would have taken away from the birds. So notice that this is kind of a solid piece. It's close to a solid. It's just a pin dot, and it works really well. And I used the same color on my O's. And I introduced a new one here. Now, let's talk about the X's here, okay? Some of these are directional fabrics. This has a direction to it right here on the girl bird, and so do the X's. I wasn't going to worry because there were so many X's and so many little pieces to piece on them that I didn't really worry about the direction of it. And I don't think, unless you're really anal and fixated on those things, just watch your directions. So if you are, please take care and put a pin or a marking so that everything's the direction that you want it to be. When you're using directional fabrics, that will really help you, and it's very important. All right, but I did on the border, I made sure that this border, they were all facing the right direction because I didn't want it mismatching, but that's enough about the birds right now. Let's talk about cutting, okay? So let me fold this up really quick. And I want to talk to you about how important cutting is to the process, and talk a little bit about the new year, okay? So, for the new year, my goal is to do things better, more accurately, really look at the little details. And the little details can really matter at times. Sometimes you can rush right through a project and have it work, and it turns out okay, and it turns out really good. Other times, there are times that we need to step back and improve our skills, and that's what I'm trying to do this year. I'm going to really focus on details and making the details a little more improved, more accurate, so my points really line up. I'm going to work a little harder on my directional fabrics and how to match those up. I didn't on this one, but that's one goal I did on one piece, okay? I did on the border, I made sure that direction, but there were so many little pieces, and I was trying to get this done that I didn't focus on that. Now, I'm going to step back and I'm going to give myself time to do those things. That's another thing. We don't often give ourselves time to make the projects the way we want them. We're on timelines and we have to get it done, so we start rushing through it. We may start out a little slow and a little more intentional, but by the time we get done, man, we're rushing through it. Okay, so I didn't put my mat on because I want to talk to you about the non-slip pad. And you probably think, oh, why talk about this? I feel like it's one of those little misnomers that I never talk about because it's implied. The non-skid pad is so crucial to your piecing and cutting. It will make your cuts more accurate. Now, I don't have it. Wasn't using it on my countertop at home, and I have a granite surface, a slick surface, and my mat was going all over the place. Once I put this underneath my mat, man, it stabilized it, so it wasn't moving as I was cutting. If I was not using the non-slip pad, my mat would be all over the place. It'd be this way, and that's not going to give you an accurate cut. So, get your mats out. If you haven't purchased one, please purchase one. It's really important for that foundation of cutting. The next thing I want to talk to you about is good rulers and why I love ours, okay? And this isn't just a sales pitch. I truly believe in our products and how we've made them and how we've developed them and the little details on them that just make them so unique. Okay, as you're cutting, I feel like it's really important to have your favorite square ruler to square up your blocks. I really like our lines because I can see them. As I'm getting older, my eyes are getting worse, and it's harder to see the different colors on the rulers and the glare as well. I really like that I can use right here the guide, but if I don't need the guide, if I don't have more accurate, if I'm not making an accurate cut, then I can take the guide off and use it for multiple layers. So I really like that, and it keeps me nice and stable. Now you think, oh, this is a different funky shape. I really like this comfort cutter because it has the bent rounded. Now, I used to hold my comfort cutter just like this with my thumb on top. That was really comfortable for me, but I fell and I broke my wrist. And after I broke my wrist, you can see right here, I had it operated on, and now I have this steel plate put in there to hold everything together. Now, I'm not bionic yet. I'm getting there, piece by piece. Anyway, I had that put in, and once I did, man, this didn't feel as nice any longer. It felt, I could feel the strain that I was pulling right here. So I started putting my finger up here to cut, and boy, that eliminated that tendon or whatever it was that was stretching and pulling. By doing that, I have more control and I'm more accurate when I'm cutting. So if you're finding a real struggle and a little more pressure on your wrist, try the comfort cutter and put your finger on top. It helps you align to make it more accurate as you're cutting, and you're able to hold it more steady. So try that as well. Okay, so let's talk about cutting. I'm going to stand up here. Let's talk about our true grips. Make sure you have your true grips on your rulers. They're also going to stabilize them almost sometimes too well, so you can't make those slight little adjustments, but I'd rather be able to adjust it and make it nice and accurate. Now, when I'm at home, my countertop is up here, so I can lean on my ruler, but when I'm here, this table's down below, so this is going to make it more accurate for me as I'm cutting. So when I'm cutting my eighths or smaller pieces, I like to use a smaller ruler. The larger ones tend to slide all over the place, so when you're cutting strips, this long ruler works really well. When you're cutting your strips into blocks and parts of the blocks, a smaller ruler will work really well. So I like to use the 3x18 is a good one, and even sometimes the 6x6 square ruler, awesome, because it really helps you square up as well. So cut your strips out, make them nice and straight, don't have too many folds as you're cutting, and then the fewer layers, the more straight and more even it is. But one thing that I do like about our rulers is I'm going to use these lines right here. They help me. Now in this quilt, I want to tell you that there's a lot of 3/8 and 5/8 and 7/8 inch seams that are inches that you're going to be cutting. And so use the ruler as it's intended, and you'll notice that these 1/8 inch markings are clearly marked. That's what I like about them. So you can see them and you can line them up. So I will lay my fabric down along a red mark right here so I can know that it's nice and straight. And then I'll use my ruler here as I'm lining it up, one of these lines, and line it up right here. And then you're just going to start cutting. Okay, and that's really what I wanted to show you. Those are my tips and tricks for cutting. If you have some, email me. I'd love to see what you're working on, what you're doing. Give others your tips and tricks and your hacks for cutting. I just felt like that was really important. It's a new year, so if you don't have some of our products, our mats are awesome. Our rulers and our cutters, fantastic. It will make your life different. Okay, so let me tell you about how I piece the birds. When you print this out, have the colored piece of the block laid out in front of you so you can reference it. So I always do that. So as I was working, I had two of them. I had this one laid out in front of me. You can see I used it and I wrote lots of things down on it. but I was able to write my measurements of what I was cutting. Because with each of mine, I have to sew them up first and make adjustments. So I do waste a little bit of fabric so that you don't have to. So on my X's, I did a couple little things. I cut these and a half, and I did the heart a little differently than I did on this one. Things adjust and change. So be willing to look at it and see, how can I make it fewer pieces? How can I make it easier on me as I'm piecing? So for the birds, I laid out each bird before I started sewing them up. So I had them in their sections. I had my triangles on top of each other so I could just pull them and do one row at a time. And I found that that's much easier as you're quilting and piecing, to do one row at a time, get that section done, and then move on to the next, rather than trying to do everything at once. Now, my other trick and tip that I have is I always sew up one block first to make sure that my measurements are correct and that the pattern is correct. Not all patterns are created equal, and we make mistakes as we're writing them up and designing them. And so if you haven't had a pattern if you've had a pattern that's been perfect every time, wow, that's great and wonderful. And I've had several of them, but I've had several that I've had to readjust and rewrite, and I've already cut out all my pieces, and it's like, oh no. Before you cut out all your pieces, make sure that each block is sewing up correctly. All right, so these are 2.5 inch, so I laid out my little block, and I wanted to show you, for another bird, I'm going to use this as the main section. This is the wing again, and this little piece as the little belly. See how pretty that is? And then for the boy bird, I used this blue and this medium blue that I used, and this is the belly. See? A little bit different look, but totally cute and wonderful. So for the X's, Amanda has put 2 different ways to piece. I liked piecing the squares first and putting the triangles around. That was my way. She wanted to make it so that you could do the version of the flying geese and sew those together. So in hers, you're going to have the center section with little triangles as well, pieced together. That was so many pieces that I didn't want to do it that way. This is my version. You can do it however you want. That's what makes the world great, is that we are all individuals and we all have our own ideas of how we will do things. Now, for the O's, I did my center section of my O's right here. My center section, I sewed up my 3 pieces together because those were all going to be the same, and then I did my top and my bottoms. Now, you can decide if you want to make your top and your bottom one piece with the 2 triangles on the side, or if you want to cut it in 3 separate blocks and sew it together. You do you. I'll do me. I chose to do it this way, and it turned out just fine. All the measurements, all the cutting will be in the pattern. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining me today. For this new year, I just want to say thank you for following us. Thank you for being a part of the Grace Company, and thank you for being you. Quilting world is such a needed part of what's going on in the world today. There's so much hate, and quilters have a different way of looking at people and what's going on in the world around them. They say, no, not for you to change. They say, what can I do to help you in the world? And then they go and piece a beautiful quilt, and they take it to you, and they're changing the world one quilt at a time. So thank you for all that you do, and join me as I put this on the frame and I start quilting it. We'll see ya. Bye-bye.